Yo guys, what is up? Max in a Borderlands 4 video, and today we get our first exclusive information about Amon and Harlowe. Now, it's important to note that this is not the full gameplay reveal of these two characters. Gearbox has stated that they're going to do another reveal event for the full gameplay breakdown of Amon and Harlowe. This information is coming from Game Informer. Game Informer got exclusive access to being able to be one of the first people in the world to play Amon and Harlowe and write an article about it. So all of this information is from their first look at Borderlands 4 and playing Amon and Harlowe and the details that they talk about these characters. I hope you guys enjoy the breakdown. Let's get right into it. So before I move on from the Fade Fields, I have a brief opportunity to be the first to play two never-before-played Borderlands 4 Vault Hunters. Amon is the hulking brute of the roster, standing over 7 feet tall. His movement is noticeably more tank-like than the other playable characters, but he can still run, jump, and traverse the world as well as the other Vault Hunters. Now, I had heard that Amon was the biggest Vault Hunter that they've ever made. He's larger than, I think, 2 Salvadors stacked on top of each other. As they said, he's 7 feet tall. So this is a big dude. They go on to say that though they all have access to the game's vast library of guns, Amon's action skills lean heavier into melee and projectile gameplay, and his trait allows him to have a second action skill associated with each primary one. So, Amon's trait, his passive, is that he gets 2 action skills, which is crazy. Usually there's a big trade-off with something like that. With Zane, you lose your grenade. It sounds like Amon just gets to use 2 action skills. So his first action skill is called Crucible, which allows him to throw elemental axes at his enemies, and his secondary action skill gives him a multi-elemental throw. Meanwhile, his Onslaughter action skill gives him a powerful flaming punch, with the secondary action skill seeing him slam a hammer into the ground to deal fiery AoE damage. So we saw a bunch of Amon gameplay where he summoned, I think they said he was 12 different weapons that he can summon. I was really confused on how he was going to be able to summon all these weapons with 3 action skills. I was thinking maybe they were melee overrides, kind of how we saw in Borderlands 2. But it sounds like all of these different weapons are just going to be summoning from secondary action skills, which he just gets basically by default. You don't need to spend points to unlock this trait. It is just given to you. So that is really, really cool. His most unique action skill could very well be Scourge, where he summons a shield that can absorb damage, then pays it back to enemies with a projectile whip. In Scourge, he can also spawn a wall of fire that blocks incoming enemy shots and provides cover for you and your team. Dang. So he's kind of got the Athena shield, where he's going to be blocking enemy damage, and that whip that we've seen him using is what he's using to send back any damage that's absorbed by the thing. And then his secondary thing is just summoning a wall of fire to protect you. I'd imagine you could also shoot through it as well. Sounds really, really cool. Next, they talk about Harlowe. They say, next I spent some time as Harlowe the Gravatar. Harlowe's abilities center around a mechanic called Entanglement. When enemies are afflicted with this rainbow glowing ailment, damage dealt to 1 spreads to impact all enemies currently entangled. Holy, wait, Harlowe has ties that bind as just a trait. So we've seen this in the gameplay. We've seen enemies kind of glowing rainbow, and we've seen guns shooting rainbow stuff. That sounds like what entanglement is. And it's just kind of Harlowe's mechanic, or her passive. So anytime that you afflict enemies with entanglement, if you shoot at them, all enemies that are entangled will share damage. So she's got ties that bind without having to use ties that bind as an action skill. That sounds crazy. This is so great. I've been hoping to play Harlowe. That's kind of been what I've been leaning towards, and this sounds very good. All right, her action skills, apply it in various ways. With 0 point, Harlowe can use telekinesis-style powers to lift an enemy off of its feet and suspend it in midair. We've seen this in gameplay. This is basically phase lock or phase grasp. Then Harlowe can slam the affected enemies into objects, the ground, and even other enemies, with an enemy hit by the floater also impacted by entanglement. Cool. So you can when you lift up an enemy with this phase lock, you can slam them into the ground, you could hurl them into a building, send them into a barrel. That sounds really cool. Her Chroma Accelerator action skill lets her charge up an explosive, unstable energy pocket that blasts forward, entangling any enemy caught in the line of fire or the enormous radius. We've also seen this. This kind of looked like a nuke that she launches. Pretty cool. And then finally, Flux Generator sees Harlowe drop a pulse mine that entangles any creature caught in the wide radius. So this sounds like a way to kind of do her like phase grasp, but do it in a much larger radius. You probably don't get to do the slamming and controlling, but you can have multiple enemies entangled at a time. They go on to say, I thoroughly enjoyed Harlowe's entanglement abilities, though I loved feeling like a Jedi as I lifted an enemy into the sky, slamming them around as I continued blasting away with my rifle. Nothing topped the satisfaction of detonating a massive explosion to wipe a corner of the map. Then again, when you combine the wide radius of the pulse mine with a strong gun, Harlowe proves to be a one-woman wrecking crew for big crowds pretty quickly. Though I was spending my time with Amon and Harlowe in the world, I tackled a primordial vault as Vex, the Dark Siren of Borderlands 4. So this just kind of goes on to like detail vaults and that rest of the stuff. But that is the main information we've got about Harlowe and Amon. So it does sound like Harlowe is going to be more of a crowd control AoE character, which is kind of what I was hoping for. I was thinking that she was going to play a bit like Amara, and with like a slight hint of Moze, because it does seem like she's going to have some pretty big focus on like explosives and radius stuff. So that is all sounding great. So this article goes on for actually a bunch of pages. If you want to check out the full thing, I will leave it down in the description. You do need to subscribe to read the full thing. I'm saving the rest of the information from this article for a different video because it goes into story setup as well as talking about later areas in the game. And I know a lot of people would probably not want to hear that or like avoid spoilers. So I'm going to save that for a different video just so that we can talk about Amon and Harlowe in this one. But both of these characters sound sick. Amon being a massive hulking beast with the ability to just do multiple action skills sounds crazy and summon all of these different weapons. And then Harlowe being our like crowd control damage sharing character. One really interesting theory that I've heard about Harlowe is a Trant, right? And when we go and fight Captain Trant in Borderlands 3 on Athenas, we are accompanied by Maya. And Maya is phase locking all of these enemies, and it's ultimately kind of what leads to Captain Trant's downfall, is Maya being there and her with her phase lock abilities. And so the ongoing theory is Harlowe saw these abilities in action, and her being a scientist was able to create the tech to replicate what Maya was able to do. So while Vex is the siren of this game, Vex is kind of like this like anti-siren, more focused on kinetic damage. She's got all of these summons, and she is a witch, versus Harlowe is kind of like a pseudo-siren, where she's like using gadgets to replicate the abilities of Maya, which sounds also really cool. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if this sways your opinion on who you want to play at launch. I know people are already pretty set on certain characters. But yeah, guys, I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Peace.